you're retired at the ripe old age of 22. Is that accurate?
24 in a week.
Is your hip okay? Can we get you a walker? Are you all right? All right, Jacob, how's it going?
Good, man. I'm good to be here. It's strange times, but we're making the most of it, right?
Yeah, man, that's an understatement. I do have a bit of a bone to pick with you. I see names in the Overwatch League like Boombox and Alarm and Fury, and you're Jake?
Yep.
Come on, man. What are you doing?
I used to have a gamer name, I guess, more of a true gamer tag.
Yeah, but, was that Sneaky Polar Bear or something like that?
Yeah, that was back when I was a kid. I was like 10 or something when I made that name.
That's horrifying.
Playing online video games, but people started thinking when I started playing Overwatch, it was funny because I just went by Sneaky, and that's the name of a very well-known League of Legends professional. So everyone thought I was him because I was like one of the higher ranked players. They just assumed that I was the Sneaky from C9. So I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I just need to change my name. And I feel like at that point, it just felt silly to come up with like a new gamer tag. So the only thing that felt authentic, I guess, was to use my own name.
It's a shame you think that, because a polar bear is devastating. So to have a sneaky one would be way worse.
I think I saw some YouTube videos out when I was 10. I was like, this is the name. This for me.
It's too late. It's too late. You didn't know me back then, because stealth polar bear.
That's true. Could have been better. Could have been better.
So I was thinking about, like, you have a dream job. So many people would love to play video games for a living. And, I know how to, like, you think of like a professional actor or a professional athlete or a professional traditional athlete, like a baseball player. I know the path to get there, Little League and then high school. If you were to give advice to somebody who is looking to become an esports professional, what advice would you give them?
This is a great question. To be honest, this is something that I kind of get like all the time, because that is the question on the tip of everyone's tongue. There isn't, as you said, that traditional path. Oh, okay, just compete in high school. If you're good in high school, you compete in college, so on and so forth until you make it to the professional league, or find something along the way that fits. But yeah, there's that doesn't exist, unfortunately, in esports. I think part of the problem is inevitable. Like, part of the problem is structural. That, okay, it's a new thing, it's just on the come up. But part of the problem is that, I mean, you could be 16 years old and be the best in the world, not the best 16-year-old, but actually the best in the world, because esports transcend those physical limitations. It's not about necessarily reaching physical maturity the way, there's no 16-year-old on earth who's going to be a strong competitor in like the NFL or something. You're just not there yet. But esports transcends that, and so we have to find new ways of structuring the system and of finding who's the best. And right now, what that mostly ends up being is the online leaderboard in most games. So the first step genuinely is to get to the top of that online leaderboard, or as close as you possibly can. So in Overwatch, that's going to be the top 500. Some games now are starting to run in-game tournaments, which I think is awesome because it lowers the barrier to entry significantly. Part of the problem with, competing in esports is, especially in a new game, is it's very hard to like build a team and find a team. You kind of have to know people coming in. So that social aspect is actually super important too, like finding your friends, and maybe not necessarily like your closest friends, but the people who take it as seriously as you do. If you're somebody who really wants to be a competitor, build those teams, compete at an amateur level, finding success there. That'll be like the bigger springboard to go leaving the rank ladder, going to a professional stage, professional competition level. It really is all about grinding your way up, first on the leaderboard and then in that amateur scene.
Okay. Now you mentioned, a 16-year-old to be the best in the world in esports. And I know you're retired at the ripe old age of 22. Is that accurate?
24 in a week.
Is your hip okay? Can we get you a walker? Are you all right? What made you decide to hang up the keyboard and the mouse?
I think for me, it wasn't about like ability or like feeling like, oh, I can't compete anymore. But I think it was just wanting to change the pace of my life, to do something new and different as far as not competing in the Overwatch League anymore. For me, like, even though I'd only played in the Overwatch League for 2 years, I had been doing that same thing of really trying to be the very best in the world at this game, since the day it came out, really like playing with the mindset of being a professional player. And it's just the nature of esports that things change very rapidly. You need to be constantly putting in the work, constantly adapting. There's not much stability in terms of like your skill, because the games are new. Like, what I tell a lot of people is, when they ask, how do you climb the leaderboard? How do you get better? And this is something that is even more true at the pro level, where everyone is getting better all the time. Like, there is no, like, the people who, if you take the skill level that was considered like the best in the world close to the game's launch, you're like an obsolete player in a year if you don't improve from that point. So even the best players are constantly improving, constantly getting better and better and better. And I think that aspect really means that you're always putting in the work. There's never a moment where you can rest on your laurels and just be like, oh, I'm pretty good at the game, I'll just ride it out for now. At least the way I look at it, I just don't think that strategy works. So I wanted to take a break, and I think the only responsible way to do that as part of a team, like, I couldn't do it if I was in the team. Like, I would make myself give maximum effort. So I had to take a step back in order to get my lifestyle right and make those changes I wanted to make.
Now, is there any truth to the rumor that it's because you were afraid of the Philadelphia Fusion?
Yeah, totally. Is that specifically just the Philly Fusion? They're too scary. Couldn't go into the server.
I get it. Now you're part of an esports summit with the International Olympic Committee. I know there's been a lot of talk about esports becoming part of the Olympics, and we're huge Olympics fans here. Tell me what that's like and what that could possibly look like to have esports on an international stage like that.
Well, I think it's early days yet, but personally, being at the summit, I was really impressed with how open-minded everyone was. Especially the people who, they are from an older generation. They're not didn't grow up in gaming, much less esports as like a part of the culture. So the fact that they're even open to having that dialogue and starting the conversation, I think it is a long way out. But I could totally see places for cooperation, right? Even if it's not like esports in the Olympics. I think there's just an awesome opportunity to bring the movements together, because the Olympic movement really, as I've learned more and more, it's all about the athletes. It's all about creating a sustainable ecosystem for those athletes and serving them well. And I think esports could learn so much from that mindset and the way that they treat their players. So I think there's real potential to have stuff like sister events and in the same time and place as the Olympics, even if it's not an Olympic event. Personally, I think we're lucky in esports, at least, to be in a position where it's not that necessary, really. For a lot of sports and athletics, like the Olympics is the defining ultimate competition, but I don't think it'll ever be that for esports, in the sense of, like the world championships for any game are probably going to be a bigger deal, at least to those teams. And usually the national competitions, since esports is so international, the competitions that organize people nationally are, I think, a little bit more about fun and fan service, because the best teams in the world, they are international teams. They bring together people from around the world. So I think it'd be awesome to have those events, but I see it as more of an adjunct to what esports is already building on its own.
One of the things that I love about gaming is the diversity. I noticed that you have done charitable streams for the NAACP, for True Colors United. What can the gaming community be doing to better promote diversity?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. I think this is a hot topic right now in the gaming community, because gaming has this sort of dual reputation. I think on the one hand, obviously there's like these negative stereotypes that there can be toxicity and people not being welcoming, which of course, like, they're bad actors in anything. You can't deny that. But what I do think is one of the cool things about the internet is, it has this tremendous ability to connect people, and gaming itself has this tremendous ability to bridge barriers. Like, it doesn't matter, in my opinion, what you look like, or really anything else at all besides like how you play the game, right? Like, if somebody can come in and play the game well, you want that person on your team, you want to play together. And it's just a natural bridge to a lot of barriers that kind of exist in normal society, and for a lot of people are hard to overcome. So I believe that the long-term future is really bright for gaming in this sense, because there's something really fundamental about that, about being able to play video games with somebody from another country around the world with a totally different lifestyle and culture and experiences than you have, but you can still come together and play this game. Now that gaming is such an international phenomenon, it's practiced around the world. So I think ultimately that long-term future is bright, but in the short term, we've got a ton of work to do. Like, as far as big personalities in gaming speaking up and showing that not only is it cool to embrace diversity and to have a more vibrant community, but also we have to do that actively. Personally, what I believe in is that that's one of the best things about gaming, that we should be trying to bring people in. It's the worst thing in the world to keep people out. I know for me, gaming was always this place to come. It's like a refuge, right? It's like a social experience. You're making friends, you're having a good time doing something you're passionate about. So for me, it's like the worst thing in the world to try to keep that from somebody or hide that away. It's like, I want to share that with as many people as humanly possible. And I don't care where you come from or what you're about or what your lifestyle is. If you like gaming, then, I want to share that.
Good man. Overwatch League. We're heading towards the grand finals. I'm going to give you 3 opportunities. Who are your picks? Who are the 3 teams that are the ones to watch, aside from the Philadelphia Fusion?
Aside from the Philadelphia Fusion, that does make it easier.
You can include the Philadelphia Fusion.
They would be my top 3, but it's easier if you give me more picks. So I won't turn it down. Let's say Philly is like my default pick, and then if I had to pick 3 more, it's tough. It's tough. I'm still gonna put my money on the SF Shock, despite the last tournament not going great for them. I still think that they've got incredible strength of roster. They just signed Tayo, so they're continuing to make moves despite being a really strong team. So SF Shock is one. And then to go to the APAC region, I'm going to say that the Shanghai Dragons, they've been incredibly strong, flexible as well, and the Guangzhou Charge. I think any 4 of those teams could win it all, could take it all the way. It's just going to depend on who's playing the best, come playoffs.
Boy, I got to tell you, losing that live component was heartbreaking. I went to the grand finals. We're in Philadelphia last fall and just had an absolute blast. Have you noticed how the fandom has reacted to the games being taken solely online? Has that been a challenge for you guys?
Oh, for sure. It's been a challenge for everybody, but I try to look at it in the relative sense, kind of how I approach a lot of things in life. This is a challenge for us, but compared to how, most people around the world have just had this radical disruption in their life, they can't do the things they love. They can't, pursue those passions, or maybe their work has been disrupted. And, so I just sort of look at it as man, it's water off a duck's back to us, because we can just, continue to provide this awesome entertainment product to people around the world, fans who love it, continue making it better and better. Obviously, it'd be better to have offline events. That's way more fun, bring the community together in person. But, it's just a question of health and safety. So the fact that we can do even 80, 90% of what we could do otherwise is awesome for us. So I just focus on the bright side, that's 80 to 90% more than a lot of things that have just had to shut down. And there's just no recourse. What I'm most interested to see is how the things come out the other side. When life goes back to normal, what will be that new normal as far as working from home, as far as esports, online competitions versus offline competitions, in the wider world in general. I think it's a really interesting puzzle. And luckily, I think just esports being an online phenomenon to some extent, positions it really well.
This is one of my favorite things to debate. You'll probably be on my side on this one. Are video games art?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm a believer in a very wide definition of what art is. I mean, I think ultimately, I'm a more extreme believer in video games being art, because what I think is, of course, the actual people creating the games, designing them, this is art. I mean, if you look at the actual component products that go into making a video game, there's a bunch of stuff that's undeniably art, people creating these beautiful landscapes and these whole new worlds, digitally. But have you seen just some of the photos coming out the Overwatch League or whatever, and just the beautiful shots they've gotten in the game, showing things going on, and it's beautiful, it's breathtaking. If you like the game, especially, it's a really awesome thing to see. So I think it's pretty undeniable that the games themselves are art. But I personally, from playing professionally, I really believe that playing itself and the way that you play the game is itself an incredibly creative endeavor. And, I don't know, I think the definition of art isn't so important. It's more about, how it makes you feel and what it gives to you. And for me to see somebody play incredibly well, do something really inventive and amazing, that is inspiring to me. That is, gets me thinking creatively, gets me excited. So for me, the fact that it checks all those boxes, definitions, is it art? Is it not art? It's not so important to me. I just think it is this amazing form of creative entertainment. And it does for me what I would want art to do for anyone else.
Yeah, I think you hit on what I like. To me, art makes me feel something. Makes me feel happy, sad, angry, and I have experienced all of if it's made by a human and put out there for consumption and makes you feel an emotion. To me, that's art. And whenever anybody downplays video games or uses a stereotype someone in their parents' basement or something insulting like that, it's you're missing out. It's if you don't enjoy rap music or animation or those things, then you're listening to the wrong rap music or watching the wrong animation. And in my mind, gaming is absolutely an art. Now, before we head out, to people that are new to Overwatch League, new to esports, what's your best pitch to get somebody to give the Overwatch League a shot?
Well, I think one of the most fun things about Overwatch compared to other games in the category is just how fast paced it is. Like, there's always something going on. There's always some sort of little play going on the map. Obviously there's the huge crazy moments where everyone goes all in. It's just the last man standing to kind of take the team fight. But at any moment, somebody's setting up for something. Somebody's thinking of the next play. The teams are preparing for the next battle. So I think, for me, the joy of esports is just how incredibly fast paced it is. And now there's just always action, always something going on. And I think Overwatch is a perfect example of that. On top of that, you get, if you like FPS games and you play a lot of them yourself, then there's just something, preternaturally beautiful about watching somebody play to near perfection, the way that players in the Overwatch League have been able to reach.
And what are the odds that we could see the stealth polar bear take not his controller, take his keyboard and his mouse and get back into the game? What are the odds?
I think I'm firmly Jake now, but who knows? I think I don't like to close the door on anything in life, as far as like competing again, playing professionally again. But I know right now it's for me just about like finding a new goal in life, and maybe that will shift once again to wanting to be the best in the world, wanting to compete. But I also feel like it's incredibly meaningful to me to be able to tell the stories of players and to be somebody with professional experience who knows exactly what it's like to be there, in the hot seat, competing, and all the highs and lows that can bring, amazing victories against the odds, crushing defeats. I've seen it all. So I think, to me, I'm really inspired by the opportunity to tell those players' stories and relate to the fans what it's like to be there. And I think at the end of the day, that is like one of the most interesting things to the fans is they want to know. And at the same time, the players, they want to feel heard. They want people to know their story, their emotions, in a way that I think a lot of players don't ever get the opportunity to express. So right now, I'm still super psyched on commentating, and more than commentating, just telling the story is how I look at it. And there's so many different roles in which I can do that. So for me, competition, I wouldn't say it's like behind me totally, but I feel like I've really expanded in my perspective in life, and my focus is now really broad, which I think to be a professional, to be the best of the best, which is sort of the standard I set for myself, you need to have a very, very narrow focus. And at least for now, I prefer the broad spectrum.
Jake, you are the oldest 23-year-old I have ever met. Like, it's honestly, it's been an honor, man. I'm going to be there in the finals. I'm going to have my Fusion jersey on. I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been great, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. This was a great discussion.